Here's some perspective on what the fallout of this very, very aggressive meltdown, this crossfire between India and Canada, has caused so far and what could be worse impacted. Like I said, 40% of international students in Canada come from India. That's nearly half. Indian students add $16.3 billion to Canada's economy on an annual basis. $16.3 billion. Indian students are key to expertise and academics in Canada. India could block Canada's inclusion in key international groups, and Canada's marginalization on Indo-Pacific institutions, which happen to be a pet project for Justin Trudeau, could also be a thing of the past should India choose to block Canada's efforts. Now let's answer some important questions that many Indians, remember, huge immigration, large student population, many people in India who travel to Canada frequently. These are questions that they have on their minds. So I'm going to try and answer some of those for you. What happens to your current visa if you have a visa to Canada? There is no bar on traveling if you have a valid visa. Either from Canada or from India, there is no bar on any kind of travel if you have a valid visa document. Can your child return from Canada on their existing visa? Yes, no problem for valid Canadian visa holders. So if you have a child studying in Canada, no problem on their current visa at all. Will open work permits for spouses be restricted? Work permits only to spouses of international students in master's and doctoral programs at this point of time, nothing else. Question number 4, can you travel to Canada? Yes, you can travel to Canada. It's the same visa application process. No bar on Indian travelers for now, but there is a possibility with a pared down High Commission that it could take longer. There may be longer procedures as far as granting of visas is concerned. Now, I want to specifically answer some questions about students and families of students and potential students looking at Canada. Can these diplomatic tensions affect student visa applications? Like I said, there could be possible delays. In fact, expect delays in the processing of student visas. Potential decline in the number of visas issued should also be expected. In fact, that will almost definitely be the case. Can processing time for student visas be delayed? Like I said, may take longer as staffing has been reduced considerably at Canadian consulates and the High Commission in India. Will the India-Canada face-off impact jobs and job prospects for Indian students studying in Canada? Job prospects for Indian students are already quite low in Canada. There are not many job prospects there, and employment is at an all-time low in Canada, so therefore it may be impacted further. Can visa issuance for students be suspended once again? For the moment, and once again I underline this, for the moment no official suspension has been announced, but there could be developments on that front given the belligerence with which India and Canada are acting against each other at this time. How has the cap on international student visas impacted Indian applicants? Well, there's a new cap of 360,000 international student visas for 2 years and represents a 35% dip. What to do if you face difficulties with your visa applications? You'll have to contact your educational institutions that have granted your child admission or immigration consultants. It is a slippery slope, and I will freely admit that there are many uncertainties here. The best thing you can do is call the university or the college that has given you admission and seek their advice on how to go about it. Will a visa rejection rate go up now? Well, a number of new study permit applications for 2025 will be reassessed. This doesn't technically mean that these visas have been denied, but there may be a call for a reassessment given the new configuration of high commissions both in India and in Canada. Shashank Mattu, my colleague who's been tracking and answering some of these questions all day, is with me live. Shashank, how will diplomatic tensions impact the processing of visa applications? It appears that there's nothing to have sleepless nights over, but delays, procedural issues could impact people, especially students looking to travel.
impacts of this diplomatic confrontation between India and Canada could be on the relationship when it comes to visas for students. You might recall that the last time India and Canada had a major confrontation in September 2023, it led to several Canadian diplomats being expelled from India.
Yeah.
Several of those people were consular officials, which meant that processing visas, including student visas for Indian students, became that much harder. What we've also seen now is that the Indian government has asked the top six, some of the top six diplomats of the Canadian High Commission to leave the country, which is going to make it that much harder for the regular working of the High Commission. And we can also, I think, expect some impact on the processing of visas. You might also recall at that point in time that India had, citing security concerns, closed off the processing of visas for Canadians hoping to come into India. So absolutely, these political tensions have had impacts on visas being issued for students as well as for people who want to travel back and forth between the two countries. And it is not implausible that this latest round of tensions will also see some difficulties between India and Canada simply because the Canada simply does not have the personnel that it needs in India to handle this situation properly. Although both governments would like to ideally maintain the flow of people-to-people ties and would like to cause as little disruption as possible for ordinary students as well as people hoping to travel between the two countries. It does remain a distinct possibility that these political tensions will make it that much harder for Indian students to obtain visas as well as for people to travel back and forth between these two countries.
And of course, Shashank, thanks for joining us on that. We have to remember also that visas and students are a huge source of income for Canada. So it's a very, very unthinkable prospect for Canada to see either of those things affected at this point of time, which is why India will have leverage on those fronts. But once again, a disclaimer, all of these actions will have repercussions for India as well, and there will be a price to pay from the Indian side as well. We'll be tracking that story very, very closely here on India Today.